Jury found the defendant guilty of first-degree murder as charged in the indictment.
Just 3 days after that verdict, Jacksonville rapper Ksoo got jumped in county jail, and it wasn't just a random hit. Word on the street is, one of Fulio's affiliates might be behind the attack. At this rate, Ksoo might not even make it to sentencing. Let's break this whole situation down. The real gets real behind bars. The Jacksonville spitter who used to be out here dissing dead ops and dropping bars from the county just got his wig split inside Duval County Jail. And I'm telling you right now, this wasn't no regular scrap over commissary or respect. This wasn't about some petty jail politics. This was straight up personal. And if the streets are telling the truth about what went down, then somebody really wanted to send Ksoo to meet his maker permanently. Let's take it back to the beginning, for real. Hakeem Robinson, better known in these streets as Ksoo, used to be that young king coming up with Jacksonville's ATK crew. Homie was making noise with them, hard-hitting tracks and visuals that kept it 100 about real-life bodies dropping, a decision that would come back to haunt him in the most twisted way possible. But his name didn't start ringing bells on World Star and in police precincts until January 15, 2020, the day Charles McCormick, who rolled with that rival 6-block crew, got his ticket punched. The feds and local boys claimed it was a get-back mission, straight retaliation for a diss track that was talking reckless about Ksoo's own bloodline getting dropped. And yo, if you're wondering how deep this rabbit hole goes, peep this. The state's main witness, this cat Dominique Barner, got on that stand under oath and testified that the whole operation was planned out like they was about to hit a military base.
So basically, so we can, handle up after that.
That's that street talk right there, hood linguistics. And when they say handle up in this context, they wasn't talking about no rap battle. They was talking about putting somebody in a box. So when that verdict dropped on July 31st, 2025, the whole courtroom went silent like somebody just got their chain snatched in church.
Jury found the defendant guilty of first-degree murder as charged in the indictment.
Just like that, Ksoo went from being that young boss with bars to a certified convicted killer. Under Florida law, first-degree murder means you getting life without parole. No cap, no negotiations, no getting out to see your kids graduate. But yo, this is where the story gets real spooky. Word started spreading through the hood grapevine that just 3 days after that gavel dropped, some serious drama went down inside that jail. Sources saying Ksoo got jumped inside his unit by another inmate, somebody who, according to the whispers, wasn't even supposed to be in that same block. Now let that marinate for a minute. County jail's supposed to run tight security protocols, especially when you dealing with high-profile inmates like Ksoo. This cat wasn't just some random rapper. He was the main character in a case involving ATK, 6-block, and a whole string of retaliatory murders that been tearing Jacksonville apart for years. He's what they call a high-risk prisoner with a target on his back bigger than a stop sign. So why, and I mean why, was this man left vulnerable like that? The official word, at least what's being whispered in them correctional circles, is that some static popped off over a mean mug. That's right, somebody looked at somebody wrong, but anybody who knows Ksoo knows ain't nothing about this situation surface level. Not after how that trial played out, not after all them deals that got cut, and definitely not after his own pops threw him under the bus. The prosecution was out here handing out plea deals like they was giving out free samples at Costco, all to secure one goal, getting Ksoo buried under the jail for life. Dominique Barner, that getaway driver, copped a deal that could have him walking the streets in 20 years instead of dying behind bars. But the most foul betrayal came from his own bloodline. The streets already know what happens to snitches and their families. When your own father gets on that witness stand and points the finger at you in a murder trial, you don't just become a convicted killer, you become the son of a rat. In prison culture, that's like having a death wish tattooed on your forehead. And just days after all that dirty work paid off, homie allegedly got found all bloodied up and beat down, with sources claiming he took a puncture wound to the ribs and caught some serious blunt force trauma. Now look, we can't confirm every single injury yet, but the rumors getting louder by the day. Them COs ain't saying nothing. No surveillance footage been released. And the family, quiet as a church mouse, dead quiet. And now, the gram and Twitter going crazy with speculation that he's locked up in the medical unit. Here's what makes this whole situation even more chilling. An account that's allegedly connected to one of Ksoo's day ones posted a story on Instagram that got deleted quick fast. It said, "They ain't break him. He's still solid. Eyes open." Was that some type of coded message? Was this attack meant to send a message or to silence him for good before sentencing? A lot of people think Fulio and the 6-block crew are behind it, and it's not hard to believe since Lil Buck was one of their own. To really understand why Ksoo became such a marked man behind bars, we gotta dive deep into that trial that didn't just convict him, it basically painted a bullseye on his back in permanent ink. The trial that put a target on his back. The whole circus started jumping off on July 23, 2025, with jury selection that had red flags flying everywhere. What made this case extra messy was them deciding to use two separate juries, one for Ksoo and one for his co-defendant and blood cousin, Leroy Whitaker Jr., who goes by ATK Scotty. This unusual setup was necessary because their defenses were basically throwing each other under the bus, each one trying to pin the body on the other. But the real fireworks started popping when the prosecution began calling their witnesses to the stand. What went down was basically a masterclass in how the system can turn family members and day one homies against each other, creating a web of snitching that would follow Ksoo straight into his cell. The state's star witness was this cat Dominique Barner, who goes by Butter, and who was originally the getaway driver in the murder. Barner's testimony wasn't just devastating because of what he said, it was devastating because of what it represented. The complete breakdown of street loyalty in favor of saving your own skin.
What was the reason that all of you wanted to kill Charles McCormick?
Because of the diss track he made.
And did that diss track upset you?
Yes, sir.
Were you upset about what he said in it?
Yes, sir.
Did he get stuff wrong?
Yes, sir.
That upset you?
Yes, sir.
Why was Hakeem Robinson and Leroy Whitaker and Kareem all upset?
Because he was dissing their brother and friends.
Barner's deal was straight up simple. Snitch on your former day ones and potentially do 20 years instead of life in the pen. For somebody facing multiple murder charges, that was an offer he couldn't refuse. But his decision to flip created the first crack in what would become Ksoo's crumbling support system.
So in August of 2020, you decided, I'm gonna look out for me, right?
Correct.
If you testify that it was not Hakeem Robinson that was the shooter, you don't get the deal. If you say it was someone else, you don't get a deal, right?
Right.
The prosecution's case was built on a foundation of circumstantial evidence that, when you put it all together, painted a real compelling picture of premeditated murder. They brought out surveillance footage from the crime scene, forensic analysis matching Ksoo's physical build to the shooter, and digital evidence including cell phone records and social media posts. The forensic evidence was particularly damaging. Prosecutors used 3D laser scans and body analysis to match Ksoo's height, build, and the way he walked to the mass shooter in the surveillance video. While the defense argued that the analysis was unreliable junk science, that visual comparison was compelling enough to convince them 12 jurors. But the most devastating evidence came from somebody nobody expected. Ksoo's own pops, Abdul Robinson Sr., who goes by Blue. The moment he took that witness stand marked one of the most shocking family betrayals in recent street history. Robinson Sr. had been charged as an accessory after the fact for allegedly helping his son escape after the murder. Facing decades behind bars himself, he cut a deal that would have him serving just 76 months, and he had already done 60 of them. The price for his freedom? Snitching on his own flesh and blood.
Now, when you watched that video of the murder of Charles McCormick, did you recognize the shooter?
Yes, sir.
Who was the shooter in that video?
Hakeem Robinson.
Your son, Hakeem Robinson.
Yes, sir.
The father's testimony was emotionally devastating as he paused for a long time, looked like he was about to cry, and then confirmed it was his son based on knowing his kids. He also gave prosecutors details about Ksoo's incriminating social media posts after the murder, including that post about getting a pedicure after killing a N*******A. The impact of this testimony went way beyond that courtroom. In street culture, where loyalty and keeping your mouth shut are everything, Robinson Sr.'s decision to testify against his son was seen as the ultimate violation. It marked both father and son as snitches in the eyes of the streets, making them targets for retaliation.
You gotta understand, Ksoo dad been killing. Like, this been like that. You ain't f***ing with no, this wasn't working at no car shop like that. They burnt this car shop up. My cousin lost his car in this car shop.
Okay, I don't know the story about the dad. Okay, so the
like,
dad
bro,
was
like the dad ain't no f***ing, you think this a camp coach? Ksoo dad is like he like that.
Okay.
Like he's f***ing like that. He been like that.
That's why he's
like this dude ain't no chance.
Rapper Boozy Badass was especially vocal in calling out Robinson Sr.'s decision, saying it was a betrayal that went against everything that should matter to a real father. His comments reflected what the whole hip-hop community was feeling, that Robinson Sr. had violated the most sacred of bonds. The defense tried their hardest to counter the prosecution's case. Robinson's attorney, Tara Kawas, focused on physical differences between Robinson and the shooter caught on surveillance video, emphasizing that witnesses described the shooter as between 5 inches and 5'11" inches with a slim build, while Robinson stood well over 6 feet tall with a heavy build.
And members of the jury, these these witnesses, each and every one of them are going to give you a description somewhere between 5'5" and 5'11". The other description they're going to give you, each of these witnesses that saw this person: slim, slender, thinner.
The defense also went hard at the credibility of the prosecution's witnesses, arguing that they were all motivated by plea deals and had lied repeatedly to police and prosecutors. They painted Barner as a self-serving witness who was willing to say anything to secure his freedom, but the damage was already done. The combination of forensic evidence, witness testimony, and family betrayal created a perfect storm that would ultimately convict Ksoo and put him in mortal danger behind bars. The trial also exposed the broader context of Jacksonville's deadly drill rap culture, where diss tracks had become literal death sentences. The beef between ATK and rival crews had already claimed over a dozen bodies, with each death spawning new music that dissed the dead and escalated the violence. This cultural context was crucial to understanding why Ksoo would become such a target in jail. He wasn't just a convicted murderer, he was a symbol of a culture that had glorified violence and turned real deaths into entertainment. His conviction represented a victory for law enforcement in their war against Jacksonville's drill rap scene, but it also made him a trophy for anyone looking to make a name for themselves behind bars. The trial also revealed the complex relationships within the ATK organization and how easily those bonds could be broken when facing serious time. Multiple witnesses who had once been tight with Ksoo were now cooperating with the government, showing how quickly street loyalty can evaporate when life sentences are on the table. For many in the hood, the trial represented more than just the prosecution of one individual. It was an attack on the entire culture and lifestyle that had defined Jacksonville's rap scene. Ksoo became a symbol of resistance to some and a cautionary tale to others, but either way, his high profile made him a target. As the trial concluded and the verdict approached, it became clear that Ksoo's fate was sealed, not just in legal terms, but in terms of his personal safety. The web of betrayals that had convicted him had also marked him as a target for anyone with a grudge against snitches, cooperators, or the drill rap culture itself. The streets don't forget, and they damn sure don't forgive. Ksoo was about to learn that lesson in the hardest way possible, when keeping it real goes wrong. The gavel dropped on July 31st, 2025, with a sound that echoed through Jacksonville's streets and straight into the concrete corridors of Duval County Jail. Ksoo's all-white jury took just 3.5 to 4 hours to deliberate before finding him guilty of first-degree murder, sealing his fate with a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole.
Madam Clerk, can you please publish the verdict?
In the Circuit of the 4th Judicial Circuit in and for Duval County, Florida, case number 16, 2020, CF 3601B, Division CRE. State of Florida versus Hakeem Robinson, verdict as to count 1, with the jury found the defendant guilty of first-degree murder as charged in the indictment. So say we all, done, Jacksonville, Duval County, Florida, signed by the foreperson on July 31st, 2025.
Robinson's immediate reaction was straight disbelief and anger as he questioned the fairness of the whole process, claiming corruption because of the jury composition. His posts on social media about all white 12 jurors with 3 white state attorneys would prove to be more than just venting. They were dangerous miscalculations that painted an even bigger target on his back. But what went down in the days following that verdict would prove that the real danger wasn't in that courtroom, it was in the jail cell where Ksoo would be waiting for his sentencing. The attack, according to multiple sources from the streets, didn't happen by accident. In the complicated ecosystem of jail politics, everything got meaning, and Ksoo had racked up way more enemies than allies through a combination of his past actions, his family's snitching, and the high-profile nature of his case. First, there was the whole situation with his pop's testimony. In prison culture, where loyalty and keeping your mouth shut are sacred, Robinson Sr.'s decision to testify against his son had branded the whole family as rats. The label of snitch's son carries deadly consequences behind bars, where your reputation is your currency and respect is literally survival.
That's what the games they play against us.
So if your own son got you caught up in a murder that he committed, you would do 30 years over your child?
If they convict me, yes. If we don't talk, they what? What the fuck? Make them do their job. If we up, we up. God gonna make us pay for our sins.
Second, Ksoo's involvement in Jacksonville's drill rap scene had created ops that extended way beyond that courtroom. The deadly beef between ATK and rival sets like KTA and 6 Block had claimed over a dozen bodies, and some of those victims had homies and family members who might be doing time in the same facility. The attack itself, based on the whispers coming out of the county, was swift and vicious. Sources described Ksoo getting cornered in a common area during a shift change, a time when surveillance might be temporarily compromised and guards might be distracted handling other business. business. The attacker, described as someone who wasn't supposed to be in that block, allegedly used a shank to inflict what sources describe as puncture wounds and blunt force trauma. The timing wasn't no coincidence. 3 days after conviction, long enough for word to spread through the jail's communication networks, but before Ksoo could be transferred to a more secure facility or protective custody. It was a window of vulnerability that someone clearly planned to exploit. But perhaps the most chilling aspect of the attack was what it represented, a message that extended way beyond Ksoo himself. This wasn't just about settling old beefs. It was about sending a signal to anyone else who might be considering cooperating with them, people. The attack on Ksoo was a reminder that the streets got a long memory and an even longer reach. The aftermath of the attack has been shrouded in official silence. There was no mention of Ksoo at the court's follow-up hearing on August 8th, the day his sentencing date was supposed to be set. The absence was notable and concerning. Why wasn't he present even via video link for such an important hearing? The jail administration's response has been typically tight-lipped. No official statements have been released about any incidents involving Ksoo, no footage has been made available, and corrections officers have maintained their blue wall of silence. This institutional response, or lack thereof, follows a disturbing pattern in Florida's correctional system, where inmate violence is often swept under the rug when it involves high-profile cases. Social media has become the primary source of intel about Ksoo's condition, with cryptic messages and deleted posts providing the only clues about what really went down. The now deleted Instagram story that read, "They ain't break him, he's still solid, eyes open," could be interpreted multiple ways. Was it a message of support, a warning, or something else entirely? The broader implications of the attack extend way beyond Ksoo's individual case. His conviction was seen as a victory in law enforcement's war against Jacksonville's drill rap culture, but the jailhouse attack suggests that the violence that plagued the streets has simply moved behind bars. This raises serious questions about the criminal justice system's ability to protect high-profile inmates. If someone as closely watched as Ksoo could be attacked just days after his conviction, what does that say about the system's capacity to maintain order and safety? The attack exposes vulnerabilities in jail security protocols and suggests that institutional indifference may be putting inmates at unnecessary risk. For Ksoo's family, the attack represents yet another devastating blow in a case that has already torn them apart. His father's decision to testify had already fractured family relationships, and now they face the possibility that their son and brother might not survive long enough to serve his sentence. The attack also highlights the complex dynamics of Jacksonville's hip-hop community, where the lines between art, street credibility, and real violence have become dangerously blurred. Ksoo's case serves as a cautionary tale about the consequences of glorifying violence in music, but it also raises questions about whether the criminal justice system is equipped to handle cases where cultural and criminal elements intersect. Moving forward, Ksoo faces multiple challenges. He still has a separate murder trial pending for the 2019 killing of Adrian Bibby Gaynor Jr., which could result in another life sentence. But more immediately, he faces the daily threat of violence from fellow inmates who see him as either a trophy or a target. The reports of multiple jail transfers due to security concerns suggest that authorities are aware of the ongoing threat to Ksoo's safety. However, the fact that the attack still occurred raises questions about whether these security measures are adequate or whether they're merely reactive responses to problems that should have been prevented. In the hood, there's an unwritten rule. When you keep it real, sometimes the real keeps you. Ksoo built his reputation on being authentic about the streets, but that authenticity came with a price that he's now paying behind bars. His music celebrated a lifestyle that ultimately consumed him, and his conviction marked the end of one chapter while potentially beginning another. One where he's no longer the predator, but the prey. The streets don't forget, and they damn sure don't forgive. What goes around comes around, and in Ksoo's case, what came around was a perfect storm of family betrayal, legal consequences, and street justice that converged in the most dangerous way possible. The question now isn't whether Ksoo will survive his sentence, it's whether he'll survive long enough to serve it. The attack was just the beginning of what could be a long and dangerous journey through the Florida correctional system, where his reputation as both a convicted murderer and the son of a snitch makes him a walking contradiction that nobody respects. The attack on Ksoo wasn't just an isolated incident, it was a message to everyone in Jacksonville's rap scene that the game has consequences, and sometimes those consequences follow you wherever you go. Whether he survives or becomes another casualty of the culture he helped create remains to be seen, but one thing is certain, the streets always collect their debts one way or another. Click on one of the cards on your screen to see more videos like this.